Hey you, I'm back again with another character option for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And this one took me a while to get done and properly play tested, but I'm very proud of this one, and I hope you enjoy it. This one's going to be a little bit longer form of a video, and we're experimenting with that because there's sometimes where I feel like I want to talk a little bit more about my subclasses or the races that I write, and sometimes 3 minutes just isn't long enough. So let's see how this goes. Inspired by the iconic blue mage of Final Fantasy, these rogues walk the line between magician and monster. Introducing the roguish archetype, the Azure Mage Rogue. And before we get too deep into it, I'd like to take a moment and give honor and a shout out to my lovely playtester who took it upon herself to bring this roguish archetype to life in a way that I never thought possible. Howdy Love Darlin, in the Hiller University campaign, it is an honor to have you play this, and you keep me on my toes. Thank you so much. Again, inspired by the iconic Blue Mage job of Final Fantasy, this roguish archetype allows the player to absorb the knowledge and instincts of monsters they encounter. Beginning at 3rd level, when you take this subclass, you learn Azure lore. You become attuned to the Azure spectrum, the magic of knowledge. That's a nod to the RPG system I'm developing. You have advantage on intelligence checks to recall information about the special abilities and properties of creatures. Now, it's saying creatures here is very, very wide and a very wide array of things that you can encounter. That's from aberrations to undead. But the reason I did this is because it's very specific, the things that they know. The way I see the Azure Mage is that I see them as like a zoologist or someone who studies animals and monsters, but really only knows trivia about them, if that makes any sense. Also, at 3rd level, you learn Azure Magic, the ability to cast the odd magic of the Azure spectrum, a non-traditional form of spellcasting that uses the energy of knowledge and instinct instead of incantations and charms. You gain the following benefits. Azure Libra. As a bonus action, you can magically absorb the knowledge or instincts of a creature within 30 feet of you that you can see and commit it to memory. You gain one of that creature's special abilities as an Azure Mimicry until the end of a long rest. The creature must be of a CR less than or equal to your rogue level to gain an Azure Mimicry from it. You can have a maximum number of Azure Mimicries equal to your proficiency bonus, active at a time. If you try to exceed your maximum number of mimicries, the oldest mimicry ends, and the new mimicry applies. But Neo, what exactly are you referring to when you talk about the special abilities of a creature? I'm glad you asked. For example, we have here the stat block of a dire wolf for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. What I'm referring to when I talk about the special abilities of a creature, I'm talking about the traits section, just here. The keen hearing and smell ability and the pack tactics ability. And it's right here below the challenge rating on any stat block. So breaking that down even further, your level 3 Azure Magic Rogue could target this dire wolf with its Azure Libra ability as their bonus action. Because the creature is challenge rating 1, it falls within their level that they can actually absorb. And they can either get the keen hearing and smell ability or pack tactics. And of course, which ability is actually absorbed is up to Dungeon Master discretion. And lastly, at level 3, you gain the Azure Grimoire. A grimoire full of your studies into Azure magic. During a short or long rest, you can add any active Azure mimicries you know to your grimoire. At the end of a long rest, you can change your active mimicries. This requires time spent studying your grimoire and memorizing the mannerisms of the creature you're mimicking. When you reach 6th level in this class, you can add to your Azure mimicries or change your active Azure mimicries during a short or long rest. At level 9, you learn the Azure Lancet. You can channel the Azure spectrum to simultaneously harm your enemies while stealing their knowledge. When you take the attack action, you can create barbs of Azure energy that bombard a creature's body before returning to you with a piece of its essence. This attack counts as a ranged attack and has a normal range of 30 feet and no long range. On a hit, it deals force damage equal to your sneak attack die plus your intelligence modifier. This does not count as a sneak attack and fulfills the requirements to make an offhand attack. If you hit with Azure Libra, you can force the creature to make a dexterity check against your dexterity sleight of hand check. If you succeed on the opposing check, you can activate your Azure Libra feature and disable the learn feature from that creature for a number of rounds equal to your proficiency bonus. At 13th level, you learn Azure Aggregation. Your mastery of the Azure spectrum has expanded beyond monsters. Your Azure Libra feature can now target willing allied creatures. The class features of willing allied creatures can now be learned as Azure Mimicry. The spellcasting and pact magic features cannot be mimicked by this feature. Have you ever wanted your rogue to have action surge without doing the really awful mechanic of multi-classing? You damn right you have. Or maybe your life cleric has gone down, but you remember that you mimicked their channel divinity and now have a pool of hit points to pick your cleric back up. Huh. Yeah, it's lit. And lastly, when you reach the capstone of this subclass, you gain Azure Divulgence. Beginning at 17th level, you have mastered the Azure Spectrum and the knowledge contained within, gaining the ability to share your knowledge with others. Whenever you finish a long rest, while preparing your Azure Mimicries, you can choose one of your active Azure Mimicries to share with a number of allied creatures equal to your proficiency bonus. The chosen Azure Mimicry is active for all allied creatures chosen until the end of a long rest. Ability I love so much because a lot of times I feel that rogue subclasses are very selfish. They don't do anything for the party a lot of times. Some do, but many don't. But I think once you get to this level, sharing the abilities that you've collected throughout a campaign, giving your party pack tactics, or sharing your cleric's channel divinity between a party, sharing action surge to your spellcasters so they can get 2 spells out. I think that there's so many amazing possibilities that can enhance your party and your party dynamic and like the combinations that you can come up with as a team. I think that there's so much fun to be had with abilities like this. And I wish that more designs in Dungeons and Dragons gave the player and the players at the table the abilities to share themselves among each other, if that makes any sense. I believe the Azure Mage Rogue is for that player that likes to take a lot of notes, that likes a lot of upkeep in their gameplay, and also wants a little bit more crunch in their gameplay too. I'm very proud of this one. I'm also trying something new when it comes to my more complex builds. I'm adding tooltips to the more complicated ones to kind of help dungeon masters or GMs really understand how to find the happy medium of balance in their things. If they find this could be a little bit too strong or are having trouble understanding how to implement this, I'm going to start putting tooltips in my subclasses to help you with that. That way you can't say my stuff is overpowered. Just read the tooltips, bro. If you would like to bring the Azure Mage Rogue to your table, you can find it on my Patreon by going here. I can't say it out loud, so just go here. But be warned, for whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster. See you soon.